It's 7 on my laptop, so I guess we can start the session. And since it's Captain Sir's presentation today, I have the honor and privilege to introduce him. Of course, he does not need any introduction to this group, but for the benefit of others who would have joined, participants outside the colors of glory, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Captain Ramachandran to all of you. Captain D P Ramachandran is a war veteran and military history enthusiast who has authored 3 books and a number of articles for newspapers and other publications, besides over 70 blogs on military history. He has lived in the Northeast India for over a decade, first as a soldier fighting insurgency, and later as a civilian entrepreneur, gathering great insights into the background of various insurgencies that have rocked the region since independence. He has first-hand knowledge about the people who live there, and their perspective on the insurgencies has been through close interactions with them. He has articulated his detailed observations through a 10-blog series on the Northeast. Captain Ramachandran is also the founder and managing trustee of the Colors of Glory Foundation, the first ever initiative in India promoting awareness of the country's rich military heritage. So without much ado, I now hand over the screen to Captain Ramachandran. It's all yours, sir.
Thank you, Ram. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And this presentation is not about counterinsurgency operations, as some of you may have assumed. I am here to tell you a story of multiple chapters that narrate the lives and times of 45 million Indians who live in the region that we call Northeast India. It's a beautiful place, inhabited by beautiful people whose smiles triumph over their tragedy. It's a region that burned with insurgency once and still burns from what I would say post-insurgency syndrome. Why do I say post-insurgency when we still hear of troop presence, armed forces, special powers acting force, peace deals being negotiated, and what have you? I say so because I lived there more than 3 decades ago when the insurgency was already dead or dying. Except for Assam, which is a relatively new problem, which came up, which saw an upsurgence for 90s, spilled over into the new millennium. But for that, believe me, the Indian Army has killed the insurgent in the Northeast long ago. It's a remarkable story of courage and perseverance, combined with compassion and chivalry. I should know I was a part of it. In the history of insurgencies the world over, no accomplishment by any other force can match this what the Indian Army did in the Northeast. But that's not our story today. It's, as I said, the post-insurgency syndrome which grips the lives of the A+ people who live in the Northeast and grips the entire Northeast and fills the lives of the people A+ people who live there with violence and uncertainty that I'll talk about. It may not be as visible as it was a decade ago now, but it's still down. Plainly put, it's a mafia raj of Billy politicians, greedy businessmen, and criminals who masquerade as insurgents. Unfortunately, the country at large, governments included, still calls it insurgency. That is why I named the topic like that. Admittedly, it's a misnomer. Understand the how this region was reduced to such a plight. This impasse, we got to have a look at a quick look. I won't take much time about it. So the multiple insurgencies which rocked the region for nearly 2 decades, commencing in the 1950s. First, let's look at the map Yeah, we'll have a look at the map of the region first, and then here it is. This is what we call the Northeast Seven Sisters: Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura. Here you can see it now. Okay, you can see the map?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's it. So I was saying, the seven sisters, Sikkim has been included recently, so it becomes 8 sisters that we can ignore. Sikkim has no insurgency. These 7 sisters of the insurgency affected one: Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura, and Meghalaya. Right. Now, before we take the individual stories, we got to look at we got to discuss the sort of, to have an understanding of the anthropological and historical reasons that rendered the entire Northeast a fertile breeding ground for insurgencies. So this is it. First is the ethnic difference of the people with mainland Indians, people of Mongoloid features who speak languages of Tibeto-Burmese origin. They look different, they speak different. Reason enough for them to feel alienated. Then this is all part of Assam 600 years of a home rule. They were, these people are, most of them hill tribes. Assam was in the plains with the Guwahati as their, or whatever is the capital those days. With 600 years under a home rule, they were living in their seclusion. And when the British took all these places, Britishers had to fight for the Manipuris, Nagas, all these tribals also there to fight. But once they achieved their supremacy, the British were interested only in collecting taxes as everywhere. They're not interested in governing. So they never touched their culture, their ways. They in fact, Nagas or headhunters, they used to leave it like that until missionaries came. They're only, as a result, they remained sort of secluded from the rest of India. And the same tribal autonomy and of the ethnic societies, which was not disturbed, was later encouraged by the British, because they did not want these people to sort of interact with the mainland Indians, because nationalist movement was gaining momentum in India. The end result was, by the time of independence, these people were more or less alienated from the rest of India. Now, take on the individual insurgencies. Nagaland, the mother of all insurgencies. If you're going to take the current situation, there also insurgency, it is almost going on for 70 years. Now, this genesis of this insurgency can be traced back to First World War, when the British raised a 4,000 strong Naga labor corps and took them to France. That was their first exposure to the outside world. They haven't even seen India, what to talk about the world. So they first got that idea of Naga identity. That is what it developed from there. They came back, and 1980 itself, they formed something called Naga Club, sort of to think about their identity and their nation. So since this idea of India wasn't there, they were only thinking about Naga nation. So when this Naga Club took a political form, forming a political party called Naga National Council, that national word came in. Nevertheless, by the time we approached independence, many of these Nagas who got educated, they were very straight-thinking people. They were quite, most of them were, prudent to understand that in Nagaland, this cannot be a nation, because being in the Indian Union will be far better. Nagaland and landlocked land cannot become a nation and things like that. And they were, in fact, interacting with the national leadership as well. But what happened was, one gentleman, Angami Sapu Fizo, was obstinate that he wanted a nation. He was actually tyrannical. He wanted his force. He stifled every opposition with violence. Any dissent which came up, in fact, T. Sakri, who was the General Secretary of the Naga National Council, was brutally murdered, pulled out of his bed in the middle of the night, tied to a tree and tortured to death. And the culture of assassination continued. Now, there was no way the government of India was going to accept a separate country within Indian Union. As it is, Sardar Patel, B.P. Menon was going around and uniting India. And these people saying that they want a nation, they wouldn't just. In fact, Nehru called it an absurd notion. Then Kiso stuck to his guns. Ultimately, I'm going quick with the history. It snowballed into insurgency. Initial stages was absolutely brutal. Any village which gave any information to the army, these people used to, the insurgents used to burn it. And any village which gave shelter to insurgents, the army used to burn it down. It was a brutal state. The insurgency of that level, it went on for about a decade. Slowly, it started in 1963. Nagaland was made a state. This started in 1950s, early 50s, mid 50s. This peaked in 1963. It was made a state. Election was conducted. It's sort of slowing down the insurgency as such. Ultimately, the government managed to have an accord with the Naga National Council called Shillong Accord in 1975. With the Shillong Accord, and that the NNC agreed to work within the framework of the Indian Constitution. But there were dissenting groups. They did not want to fall in line like NNC. They broke up, and in fact, they were in majority. They formed a new organization called Naga Social NSCN, like it, Naga Socialist, National Socialist Council of Nagaland. Nagalim, they called it. Nagalim was a concept they developed of all areas populated by, inhabited by Nagas. Some are in Manipur, some are in Arunachal Pradesh, some are in Burma. They want to make a country out of it. And very soon, these National Socialist Council of Nagalim itself broke into two, because one faction suspecting the other faction colluding with the Indian government. One was NSCN IM, Isaac Moaya. The other faction, NSCN Kaplan. And they started fighting each other. So after 1975, it was more of the security forces were more or less sidelined. These factions are constantly fighting each other. It carries on even today. So this cannot be called insurgency. This is a fight between them. And it is the people who suffer, because both parties come to collect taxes. Nobody can do anything about it, because the government is not interested. The politicians, the Naga political leaders, they are only interested in sort of fishing in the troubled waters. One they'll join with one faction, with the other faction, so whatever. And even national parties, the Indian main national parties go to Nagaland. They are interested in winning the election. They align with some political party, and the insurgency, the people's trouble are given no attention. They pump in a lot of money. All this money which is coming in hardly reaches the people. It's ironical, the Nagaland, which which took up the cause of having a Naga nation to protect their ethnic identity, ended up being exploited by the crooks from all over India. People are rushing there to make money because they're easy picking. No business could be conducted only by insiders, so they'll on proxy name they'll do it. In fact, the level of corruption, it was. I got to tell this story because to understand what was the kind of situation in Nagaland. There was a Malayali group whom I happened to talk to, literally a thief making money there. So I said, I asked him, why are you thieving like that? He said, everybody is thieving. Now, what he used to do, he said, as a contractor, he had a contractor supplying cement pipes. Those pipes which making culverts on the road. Let's say you load up about a dozen pipes on a truck, and there will be a supervisor. These roads are all deserted. There's nobody hill roads. At some point in the year, we'll go there and dump it. The supervisor will sign for the pipes, and then he will push off. The truck will go a distance, come back and pick up these pipes and put it again and go and supply at another point. Probably the same supervisor will be collecting, because they're all hand in gloves. But You'll supply the same pipes at 4 points. No arrangement was, no system was put in place so that pipes which are supplied is marked so they are not duplicated or anything. It goes on. It is all done in Nagaland, all kinds of things. So when there is so much of money to be made, the Nagas basically, they were not groups. They were honest people which are corrupted by outsiders actually. These people, businessmen going in them, talk. I asked a Mawardi, why are you doing this? His answer is, that was the kind of attitude these people had, unscrupulous lot, and they spoiled the entire the culture. Whatever culture they wanted to protect was all in doldrums. Then, as I said, the main political parties also coming. They're also interested in winning election. Nobody is interested in addressing what the problem is there. Unfortunately, even the army, who knows very well there is no insurgency worth fighting there, does not say about it because it's a field posting. Why not? Once in a while, they stage, the political parties tell these chaps, to stage an ambush or something so that insurgency is alive. Because of insurgency, funds keep coming. This was no way of fighting this one. But what I'm trying to say is problem, the load is on the people. Common man is suffering. Nothing reaches them. It's not an isolated case of Nagaland. I heard a senior bureaucrat from Kashmir speaking once. We may think it is proxy war and things like that, but the main problem in Kashmir is also corruption. Because the poor man doesn't get anything. When the youth has no job, no money, nothing to look forward to, he is easy prey for, militants coming from outside to join them, stone throwing or whatever. He'll be there. Even stone throwing, as you know, was arranged by money. This is the kind of situation in Nagaland. So I do not want to go further about it. We'll because there's a lot of things to cover. We will go on to the next. Manipur. Manipur insurgency is actually, chronologically speaking, I should talk about Mizoram insurgency. I've kept Mizoram for some reason. Manipur, it is actually an independent kingdom from 1st century. They were not that isolated. They were very much part of India. They could identify themselves as Indians. In fact, as early as 1857, the Manipur soldiers were involved in mutiny. The 34th Native Infantry, when they fought at Chittagong, the Manipur soldiers were involved. And during the British, and their sovereignty was intact until early 19th century. In 1824, with the first Burma War, the Anglo-Burma War, the British started imposing their superiority there. And Kaba Valley of Manipur was leased out to Burma in an agreement without even asking the king to do much about it. That was the beginning. They still held on to the sovereignty until 1891, when there was a ferocious battle of Kalyam. They fought. As is the sad story of most states, Manipur is lost, and all the generals are publicly hanged in one. This was happened on the 3rd, 13th of August. I think, they're still commemorated as a Patriots' Day by the Manipurians. They were very proud people who kept fighting always. And the fight, the Manipur women are also very, very proactive. They in fact, in 1904, they besieged a collector, the English collector. There was so much anger against the British. Their latest leader towards, to independence time, his name was Hijam Irobat. He was initially a Gandhian, later on he became a communist. He was involved, a social reformer. He was involved in all these movements. He was jailed for a long time. So Manipur had a history of being one with India. Then why the insurgency happened? As I said, there's every reason for this insurgency. Unlike Naga insurgency, every justification was there. Firstly, after independence, they At the time of independence, Manipur wanted to regain their sovereignty, want to become independent. They were powerless at that stage, and they could have, but they could have been given a statehood. They could have been talked into joining India in a friendly manner. Instead, it was arbitrarily annexed. 1949, India virtually annexed Manipur, and they were not even given a statehood. They were kept union territory. And even when Nagaland, which was actually Nagaland once upon a time was under Manipur. Now, even when Nagaland was given a statehood, these people are not given. So the impression they gathered was only the crying child gets milk. So this was, the annexation and delayed statehood. This is all sure recipe for an incident. But nevertheless, when the insurgency started, it was, it was called the United National Liberation Front. It started in 1964, but by 1970s, it got also broken into multiple outfits. And 1972, they were given statehood. Again, the same political stuff started. And Manipur was declared disturbed area, and the Armed Forces Special Powers Act was imposed. And the rest of the things, this, following Malone massacre in Assam Rifles opened fire at a bus stop. They say, they were trying to shoot a militant who was going to explode a bomb there, whatever it is. The Hirom Sharmila, she went on to a fast, it carried on for 15 years. All that. It's in public being easily for so long. Now, when I spoke about bomb, I should tell something about, connected with Naga insurgencies. One thing I give full credit to the Nagas was they were a very chivalrous lot when it comes to fighting. They never used this, they never had this bombing culture. Even now, Nagaland, they don't go for bombing. And no killing of innocents. And even when at the peak of insurgency, the army ambulance could move freely. They wouldn't do anything. And even some families of soldiers visiting there, they wouldn't harm them. One thing I learned as a soldier as well as civilian in Nagaland is, or not only Nagaland, in Northeast, the way they treat their women, the tremendous respect for women in the forces. That is something we plains in India learn from them. With all these cases of rape and murder you hear about, you will never hear about anything like that in Northeast. And they treat women with such respect. In fact, when I used to live with her as a civilian, going out for dinner to a restaurant or something, there are a lot of problems. My wife used to say, "You no more a soldier," and these. I said, "As long as you are with me, I'm safe." Because they're very, very respectful when you're escorting a woman, and when women are around. It is an admirable culture, and they never indulge themselves in kind of meanness. This is part of the. Whereas Manipur, to an extent, started bombing. Later, Assam will come to a lot of bombing. When the bombing takes place, civilian casualties become very high. That's why I said about the bombing. So Manipur slid into with these different factions. They sort of degenerated into a what do you call killings, counter killings, kidnapping. No institution can work. It became a land of the lawless. You have worst case, they got addicted to drugs, drug abuse, alcoholism, and Manipur and Nagaland, not far behind, are the worst affected areas in this country as far as AIDS goes. AIDS prevalence is very high. You see, the entire generation, the young generation, have been spoiled or destroyed by these insurgencies. Because I would say, from what I've closely seen, no one is interested. The IAS guys and all who come there, they're hardly interested in finding a solution to it. And they think, they just bring in the army. Army will sort it out. Army can sort out what? It doesn't fight in the, they can patrol. If they're moving in a group, they can stop them. But this is a police job. And it is when there is no administration, when there's nothing happening in the places, people are bound to revolt. I mean, people are bound to be unhappy. This is the situation in Manipur. No normal life. Even it has not changed much. In fact, this it is the resilience of the people of Manipur. We got to see. They produce world-class boxers like Mary Kom, and they got this chorus repertoire. The world-famous theatre of Tanti. They've got a lot of potential. Great sport. As you know, the polo originated from Manipur. The great sportsmen, great spirited people, but unfortunately, most of the younger generation have fallen prey to this, what you call insurgent mania. Now, government, the fatalities, you must look at the fatalities that happened in 3,000, by 2013, in this millennium alone, 3,093 killed, out of which 330 security personnel, 1,000, nearly 2,000 militants, and 854 civilians. This is the condition of Manipur. Now we come to the next one. Assam. Assam is a recent problem. They said nothing. Assam, they also talk about their old kingdom and the home and all, but they were not very serious about it. That is not the real problem of Assam insurgency. Assam, they call it. So the problem was the immigration from East Bengal. I mean, this is not a problem, recent problem or something. When with the division of partition of Bengal, people from East Pakistan, or rather East Bengal, started migrating. They had no other option. There's such abject property in that region. They used to come to Assam to make a living. It was okay. They come and they make a living, and for generations, people are happy because Assamese didn't want to do that much work. I mean, you get cheap labor, immigration labor. And when you say immigration labor is cheap, in present day context, it is not something, which is affecting Northeast alone. You can say Bangladeshi labor right as far as Kerala. As long as you get cheap labor, construction people, all these people, they're not really bothered about the nationality. And in Assam, the so much was flooded with these migrants. It was okay if they're coming and making a living. Political parties later on, in later years, started exploiting it, bringing them in the voters list. And then Assamese realized, there's a terrific demographic nightmare. I say their demographic structure is being changed. They wanted to challenge it. It started with all Assam students union as an agitation, as a peaceful movement. Later on, it snowballed into insurgency. But in fact, once ASU, the All Assam Students Union took it up, within 5 years, in fact, in 1985 itself, they had they formed a political party, Assam Gun Parishad, and they came into power, and things looked, it should have gone peacefully from there, but by then Alpha was already formed. Alpha is the United Liberation Front of Assam, is the militant wing, which sprouted from ASU later. And promptly, and now another factor which is affecting the insurgencies in the Northeast is NSCN IM, Ishak Muvaya, which is the prominent faction among the factions. Apart from creating all the problems in Nagaland, they've taken up they have virtually become insurgency consultants. Anyone in Northeast wants to have an insurgent movement to come up. NSC and IM is there to support them, arm them, train them, and naturally Alpha got support from them. And Alpha later on fell out with them because they tried to connect with Kaplam faction, which is based in Sagaing district in Burma. That's a different story. That you see, look at the complexity. These people are going around encouraging, and they're minting money out of it because they collect all these taxes from the people. Where does the revenue come from? And then There was violence which peaked in early 1990s, and army was called in. Army launched two fabulous operations, Operation Bajrang and Operation Rhino in 1990 and 92, and cleaned it up. As I said, that's what I'm saying. For army, it was no big deal. These people are switched off in 2 years' time. The entire leadership fled to Bangladesh. Now, in Bangladesh at this time was, that pro-Pakistani government, and they had this DGFI, Direct Internal Forces, ISI, and these guys found a safe haven there. But in 2008, the tables were turned when Sheikh Hasina came to power. The Bangladesh security forces rounded up the entire lot and handed over. And Assam insurgency was practically dead. Only the supposed to be commander-in-chief Paresh Barua, he escaped. He's still in China. He lives in Yunnan district. He's still threatening to sort of make a country out of Assam. Whereas Arvind Rajkowar, the president, he has negotiated with the government and signed an agreement. But Barua seems to be having more clout. It is not totally that, but it just remains dormant. And if you look at the fatalities, it is terrible. But Assam suffered 8,000 fatalities, 800 security personnel, 3,000 military, 4,000 civilians. This was the condition with Assam. Now, we come to the next one is Bodoland. They call it an insurgency within another. Bodoland is a part of Assam. The areas falling north of the Brahmaputra River, these are tribal, Bodos are the largest tribal community in Assam, 2% of the population. In fact, they represented as early as 1930, the representative Simon Commission, they wanted an autonomous area so that, their complaint was the Bengali immigrants and also non-border Assamese come and occupy their area. That was their complaint. So nobody listened to them, not even the Indian government of independence. It went on until, it turned violent. So NSC and IM is always there to help them. So it's no big deal starting a insurgency. So when it turned violent, the government woke up. And in 1993, ultimately, a Bodo Autonomous Council was formed. This Autonomous Council, the government put up a condition, any area for them to claim as borders, there need to be more than 50% borders. To ensure that, they started ethnic cleansing. You might remember in those days, there was once a terrible massacre of Muslim immigrants of Bangladesh, or basically Muslim immigrants. And over a period, the Muslims also started fighting back. There is violence, open violence, killing each other. It's not even insurgent type of thing. People group clashes. This was border. So the next one, again within Assam, we don't want to waste much time about it. It's called I called it a devil's called North Kachar, Karbi Anglong, Karbi, Dimasa, Adivasi, all kinds of tribes. I mean, they're actually, some of them are not even from Assam. These are all from mostly plantation laborers. See, even Santals from central India are there. So once these, it is sympathetic effect. So many insurgencies taking place. They also wanted a state of their own, a country of their own. Now, Santals coming in from the central India with their Maoist connections, they also got an element of indoctrination. So the place became, the entire Karbi Anglong district, North Kachar, and all these places became, it's a free-for-all. And the NSC and AM, playing along with all of them, killing. Nowadays, I want to tell a incident which I witnessed in Dimapur. Dimapur is a border town of Nagaland, which falls in Assam coast. And all these, it's at the junction of, it's a railhead. You can find all these characters there. These criminals masquerading as militants. They will go walk anywhere. These poor chaps who are running this business and all Marwadi and all. They don't have any courage. I mean, they just go and take what you want. When give them a slap, also take it. They cannot do anything. Now, I was in a textile shop. One guy went and picked up whatever he wants and told the cashier to get lost, and he was walking out. His luck would have it. A CRPF constable came. CRPF guys, these constables, mostly 6 footers, they also carry a pole as tall as them. For some reason, they don't carry a lathi, they carry this. And he just picked him up by the scruff of his neck and he said, Paisadu, and he just put everything there, Malik running away. He said, Pop, Raja Kia, he ran away. That is all. You can imagine, it's just a hoodlum. He's the one who claims as a insurgent and goes into, some of them even carry weapons. And these poor traders and all, they're threatened. You can imagine what is life like in those places, one man's life. So that's why I said I'm going to tell the story of those people. I'm not this insurgent. They're not worth being called insurgents. So we'll come to the next insurgency, Tripura, the success story I called it. Reason being, this is unique as an insurgency. This is one insurgency which is contained with the police. That's why I'm saying it's a success story. So Tripura was also a kingdom like Manipur. In fact, most of East Bengal was part of Tripura. One peculiar thing about Tripura is the trans-border movement is so heavy, people don't really bother, you are in India or in Pakistan. And most of these, in fact, when we went to Agartala in late 1960s, most of the fish vendors were from East Pakistan only. They earn their livelihood in Agartala. They get their earnings in Indian currency. They spend it on Agartala. They are not really bothered. As far as they are concerned, Agartala is very much their city as theirs. It was an old kingdom. They were all part of it. Now, all these new countries, East Bengal, West Bengal, East Pakistan, Bangladesh, it doesn't make any difference to them. It came in very handy for us during 1971 when, the informers, reconnaissance and all became very easy for the Indian Army. I mean, probably one of the reasons the 57 Mountain Division moving from Agartala, the first one to reach now. That's a different story. Now, this what I didn't say, what was this? The Maharaj, it was a kingdom, but they were not much concerned about retaining their sovereignty. That was not a problem. It is the Bengali immigrants and local Bengalis, the population, pushing the tribals out the hills, and tribals resented it. In fact, it's told that the Baptist Church had a role in that also. So tribals were mostly Christians. It took a communal tone and the fight started. But the government of Tripura was extremely methodical in it. The police force handled it so very well. Excellent investigative machinery, arrests, into trials. The police on their own, with minimum support from the army, they finished the insurgency more or less. And now they're also finishing the immigration. So this is Tripura's story. Now, the other two insurgencies are hardly anything. Meghalaya, these Gairo Jaintia group, basically sort of instigated by NSC and IM, putting up, they're also against, the main problem is immigrants coming into their area. But their insurgency hardly, there's hardly any insurgency there. The movement itself hardly lasted for any time. In fact, there's a very funny incident of NSC and support this Garo militants, Garo and Jaintia. They had no experience in guerrilla warfare. The NSC and IM was training them. And they needed funds. They started fundraising just by looting banks. A series of bank operations were carried out. And suddenly the Garo, these Meghalaya rebels, they found they get to a paltry share of 30% from the loot. by NSC and IM is taking over. They're disillusioned and they surrendered headmaster security forces. Meaning thereby, it is all about money. They have found insurgency a way of making money. And now Arunachal Pradesh. Arunachal Pradesh had only a single instance of Arunachal Pradesh, as you know, is previously NEFA claimed by China and all. It's a sensitive border state. But there was only one homegrown insurgency which the police put down. That was in 2000. But there is a problem. Through these militants, Assamese as well as Naga militants, go to Burma, because they got camps in Burma. The route is through Arunachal Pradesh, especially the Tirap district. So they were indulging in extortion. In fact, at some stage, they grab every government employee had to pay 25% of their income. They was groups. It came to even Oil India had to close down, banks are closing down. Ultimately, Army launched an Operation Blazing Quickly in 2007. It hardly took any time. No insurgency after that. It's government, but nothing like. See, if there is a real problem, Army comes in and finishes it off. But you cannot have this situation being sustained by keeping the Army there always. The local administration has to be strong. The police forces have to work. That is not happening. Now let's come to Mizoram. I said intentionally the last, Meghalaya I didn't even show because, there's hardly any visibility in this. Meghalaya and Arunachal Pradesh, as I said, a disaster in waiting because it's a border state. Meghalaya was testing the waters, this is a disaster in waiting, and now we come to Mizoram, the last. This is a unique story. I've served there, I had also served, but I served there when, when insurgency was more or less in 1967, 68. This is, again, an absolutely, one shouldn't say that, but absolutely justified insurgency. The state was so bad that today the state, those days a district, Lushari Hills district of old Assam, it was so criminally neglected. In 1960s, they had the entire district had one dirt road leading to Aizawl, the capital. It had one post office in the district. The money that used to come from Delhi for the development of the areas, they end up at Goa. And then in 1950s, they had a 1950s or terrible, 1950s infamous Mautan famine. This famine, people are dying. There's such conditions in Mizoram. A total shoddy handling of it by the Assam government. No help. That was the catalyst. That nobody wants us kind of feeling. So they formed what they called a Mizo National Mautam Fund. Force. It's called the front. They call it Mizo National Famine Front. That is MLFF. MNFF they were naming it. After the famine was over, by then, the resentment had grown. They dropped the famine from their name and Mizo National Front was formed. It was an insurgent organization. As luck would have it, almost coincidence, when all this was happening, one of the Assam Regiment Battalion, 2nd Assam, UP leader was disbanded. It had a high composition of resources. So there was ready material available to make a competent force. In fact, the leader of the insurgency, Aldanga, was a Havildar. They made such a professional force and trained the civilians also. They took other insurgent groups are more or less rebel. Time I will tell you. But these people, it was such a professional force, basically soldiers, and they trained them, and they went methodically. They didn't start the fight until they were ready. By mid-1960s, there are a sizable cache of arms by break-ins and raids of Assam rifle units or border roads outfits, and they were ready by mid-1960s. And then they stuck on 1st of March 1966. In 24 hours, they took the entire district. That's why it's the prettiest and the final, the best insurgency. If you call it insurgency best, they cut the telephone lines. By the time the rest of India came to know about it, already the entire district was in the district collector was in house arrest. And they had even printed their currency. The flag was raised and it was going on. So 2 brigades moved in from Silchar. And Assam Rifle, 1 battalion of Assam, 1st Assam Rifle, yes, 1st Assam Rifle was holding on in Niger. That's the only post. All police force fell, but the Assam Rifles battalion didn't give up. They were still holding on to Niger. So they had to be air supplied. So I had started flying, Air Force helicopters started supplying them. There was some ground fire. So fighters escorted them. Ultimately, the fighters ended up strafing Niger. Something Mizzos have never forgotten. It was the first time in India's history that air power is used against our own population, but it happens. Now, when in 6 days' time, the brigade pushed the insurgents out of Hyderabad, but they made a very tactical withdrawal until they reached Chittagong hill tracts in East Pakistan, and we could cross the border. In a month's time, Mizoram was taken back. The insurgents resorted to guerrilla warfare, which went on for almost 2 decades. In 1986, there was again negotiations. They signed the Mizo Accord. That's the beauty of it. Once the accord was signed, these insurgent leaders who had led all this rebellion turned such responsible rulers. They gave Mizoram such excellent governance. There were no splits. Cohesively, they put the state together and started, they wanted to go forward. So much so that today, from 1986, if you took a couple of decades onwards now, today, it is one of the most successful members of the Indian Union. Competing with Kerala in literacy, they took the National Football Championship. You can imagine. That's why I put this picture. You see, this is the real new dawn. The Mizoram really showed the world what the Northeastern was capable of. Not only Mizoram, Manipur, the talents are everywhere. Meghalaya, you hear about where whether it is art, sports, everything, they're very good. And these Mizos, you will find the brave young men and women. They're spread out all over the country. You'll find them from Delhi's malls to IT parks in Bangalore. You can find a lot of them in beauty parlors and all in Chennai itself. This is great people. They've become, from a stage where when I went there in 1960s, they used to say, if you went to Calcutta, they would say, we're going to India. From there, it is such a turnaround. It's wonderful because, they were quite hurt at that stage. They were, there was a headmaster riot, different than the philology-educated guy. He would, a very interesting character. You quote often, Shakespeare and Shelley. It's embarrassed me because I had just one Shakespeare and not one of Shelley. So this man used to tell me, one question he asked me. He said about this bombing and Air Force traffic agent. You think they would have done it in Delhi or Calcutta? This kind of overkill is actually not right. And whoever was responsible for it. There was no need to be. It's okay. Some fire, what they had rifles, they're not going to shoot down a copter. Some water rounds of fire. That's what I heard. There was no need to strap. It's akin to our tanks entering, in natural use. These overkills don't do the army any. It brings a bad name to the armed forces. Whether it's commanders or it's from top, they're trying to take out something which should be taken with a needle, trying to take out with the speed. So this is the Mizoram story. So now I already taken almost an hour, but we will come to now. I've given my observations. So no point in looking back in the review mirror. What could be done in that place? One has to think. I've given it a thought. I don't know if this is all prudent, but my own take on this I presented here. If you all listen to this and later on we can, in the question hour, we can have a discussion. The 10-point agenda I put up, which could put an end to Northeast. The Northeast improvement will be the way out. This is my take. I'll say the first one, a repeal Armed Forces Special Powers Act. A former soldier like me saying this, you will find it strange. The point is this: do we need this? Remove the army out from the equation. We don't need the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. I've got a sentimental reason to say this. We have in July 2004, about a dozen Manipuri women lined up in front of Kangla Fort, where Assam Rifles was, stark naked. There was a banner stretching from the one end of the line to the other end, covering their private parts. On the banner, it was from the Indian Army, rape us. Now tell me, do we deserve this? The proud force that we served. I mean, we don't go, Indian Army doesn't go around rape, and they cannot differentiate between Indian Army and Assam Rifles. That's a different thing. And in any case, Assam Rifles are also to a great extent officered by the army. The whole point is, it is because we are there. Why do we have to do this dirty job of the policeman? Because the civil administration, politicians, policemen cannot do their job. Every time we become the scapegoat. It's not right. Kashmir is a different thing. There's a war going on. We need to go there. It's not an insurgency. It's outsiders are fighting. But all these places, you drop of a hat, they send in the army. And we take all the blame. If you read some of the literature written by some so-called liberalists about the army, raping and plundering and murdering. And so, no commander, no officer ever gives in the army gives an order to the unit to go and rape or to do this. But army is being blamed. So why do we want to get into this? So the best is remove the army, let them do their work, and let them earn their salary for once proper. And with that, of course, you need to beef up the law and order machinery. They've got to make a concerted effort to have a proper law and order machinery. The administration should be bolstered. They should do their job. Now, I gave you the example of Tripura. It is possible. It can be done. Doable, but they don't do it. Now you have fourth one. Launch reactive development projects, ensure employment generation. Almost all the development projects in Northeast, either when these goons are going around and troubling people who would want to work there. Everything is in a limbo. And new projects cannot start. Nobody wants to work. At some stage, Assam insurgency was going on. These people, corporates and tea planters and managers and all being abducted and asking for exorbitant ransom. Now, who would want to work in this scenario? So and not only that, the development and the economic development, it generates a lot of employment. Once you generate employment, half the insurgency, half the entire insurgency will go off. It is unemployment that creates all this problem. Unemployed youth are easy prey for this. Next one, promote better education opportunities. More institutions within the region and vacancies in scholarships in institutions and universities all over the country. See, they're limited education institutions in most of these places. Nobody has some. Shillong has got some good institutions, but they must have more education, more engineering colleges, more medical colleges. They must, and also the universities, institutions all over the country can reserve more vacancies and give even scholarships to these people. Encourage more Northeasterners. it's a moral responsibility all these institutions, universities, everybody has to help the country get over this, terrible curse, I would say, the curse of the republic. I called the topic. Now, another point which evades attention from authorities. We need to establish a social scientific setup for rehabilitation of former militants. See, militants, when they surrender, the government gives some monetary incentive and say, all right, get lost. He goes back to his ways because he's already a drug addict. This has to be weaned out of these habits. He needs de-addiction. And then he has also got a problem to coming back to the societal mainstream, picking up life where he left it. If somebody wants to get married, no girl will marry these characters. So he has to be reformed, given confidence to start his life back, to get back on his legs. For this is not a job the army can do. This is a job that the specialists, social activists, psychiatrists, doctors, it's for them to do this. They need to make a setup, whole social scientific setup with these things. Now, next is infuse the police with motivated youth. Now, the police forces that you see, it is not worth talking about. This is the Northeast. Auntie characters, drunk, corrupt, they will no good lot. Either the entire lot has to be sent out, or you got to refine the police forces have to be made effective. You got to recruit motivated, capable youth and train them and motivate them. It is possible. If you have such a police force, half the problems are over. In fact, we can use the counterinsurgency and general warfare school in Warrington. It can be used to train them in counterinsurgency. If at all counterinsurgency takes place here, the police should be able to handle it themselves. See, if you take it, the Irish insurgency, if you talk about, the Scotland Yard is on top of the situation with all the information. It is not the army, they have every detail of all the insurgents who are doing. Here, our police don't know anything. They leave it to the police, army. Now, next one, keep the insurgent leaders. This is the most important one I want to say. Keep the insurgent leaders in prison unless they abjure violence. Now, what happens is one of the leaders arrested. He is given bail. He goes around and does the same. Starts with his tricks again. When a guy is arrested, unless he sort of gives undertaking, in fact, the British are very good at it. Of course, we are doing it, our freedom fighters. But we have to learn from them. Any miscreant arrested leader, especially, let him count the box, let him remain there. Deny him the freedom from prison unless he can behave. This we are not doing. Our people write up the Prime Minister, talk to these leaders. I'm asking they are VIPs. They don't deserve it. They should be, these rascals should be treated as they are. If they can behave only, they should be. What are they? I mean, I don't understand, our culture of the liberals and all talking, the insurgents have got their problem. Now, tell me one thing, if every citizen who has got a grievance, he starts picking up a gun, where will the country go? I've no time for these people who are talking. They must be given a hearing. What hearing? It should be unequivocally made clear that the authority of the state cannot be challenged by force of arms, unless the government can make that very clear. These sort of things will keep coming. I don't know. This is what I'm talking is a dream, and the country can become capable. The entire country is corrupt, as you know. These corrupt politicians in Northeast, you find everywhere it's the same thing. In Northeast context, I was saying, what are the solutions to bring back the state normalcy? Galvanize the vast athletic, artistic, and tourist potential in the region. I already mentioned about the athletic and artistic capability. There are fine people with great talents. And the tourist attraction, people now only go to Kaziranga. There are not many tourist spots in the north. It's a beautiful country. So we got to exploit all that. We get more income, more people-to-people interaction. And every northeasterner, let's say, especially Nagas and all, you find them. They're they look like a Bruce Lee, each one of them, because they're quite fit and beautiful girls. And so it's a people who can have a lot of potential if you can exploit it. For example, just tell you, the Priyanka Chopra made a movie on Mary Kom. Most of the Manipuris couldn't see it because they're banned Hindi movies for some militant was killed in custody or something like that. Now, what did she do? She acted as Mary Kom. She could have found a Northeast Indian girl to act. There are plenty of beautiful girls there. They could have put one of them as Mary Kom. It was one way of bringing them close to us, exploiting the resources there. So this is, you must look at that. And finally, last and not the least, win the people's hearts and minds, make them feel one with India. We got to have a lot of exchange programs. You got to bring them out. In fact, Army wants undertook for Kashmir. We must do that for the Northeast also a lot. I found boys and girls who are educated outside Bangalore, Delhi, or something, many of them in Nagaland, their entire mindset has changed. They feel ashamed about what is happening in their states. In fact, many of them are now writing. The Nagaland has got a vibrant newspaper which is writing edit, criticizing government. They're coming forward. They're writing that we should not accept these subsidies from the government. It is going into the pockets of politicians. We must learn to stand on our feet. So there is an awareness developing. And mind you, Northeast have got, especially as I said, women have got a great status in the society. So there is something called Naga Mothers Organization. The business have got, the rewards they got it. There are a lot of organizations are trying, social organizations, even the Baptist Church keeping in a lot of peace efforts, there are a lot of social work going on. Only the government has to give them support. But unless the government is the main machinery, unless they apply their mind to it, all these cannot work. Now, I was talking about winning the people's hearts and minds. It's not only the social organizations. Our people, when they come out of India, they come out to the other cities of India. We got a responsibility to see that they're treated as there's characters who see one. I told you they have some. The features are slightly different. They're jokers who immediately ask each other, "Where are you from?" So why the hell does he ask a question like that? Where are you from? If he or she answers, "I'm from India," what happens? So a goon in Delhi calling a Northeast girl a chingy, he should be punished as severely as an insurgent is punished. That's the right thing. We got to make them feel that they're part of us. These are my observations or suggestions or whatever they call. I've been rushing through it because as it is, we are crossing between the introduction also we crossed 1 hour. So before I open it for the question and answer session, I want to end this beauty from Northeast, a slice of aesthetics, Northeast Indian aesthetics. It's the rendition of a popular Indian melody by Shillong Choir, a music group which is made it in the global stage. You can watch them enthralling a Russian audience at St. Petersburg. So I'll go to that now. And wait a minute. Doesn't come through, isn't it? Has it?
No, sir. Please continue to share your screen.
Yeah. I didn't share the screen. That is. I'll share the screen and then do it. Share screen. Yeah. Coming through?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Somewhere, my love, there will be songs to sing. Although the snow covers the hopes of spring, somewhere a hill blossoms in green and gold, and there are dreams, all that your heart can hold. मुस्कुराते प्यार का असर है हर कहीं, हम कहाँ है दिल किधर है कुछ खबर नहीं। मुस्कुराते प्यार का असर है हर कहीं, हम कहाँ है दिल किधर है कुछ खबर नहीं। किधर है कुछ खबर नहीं, किधर है कुछ खबर नहीं। दिल तड़पता
So I hope you enjoyed that, even if you didn't enjoy my talk. And even if you don't remember a word of what I said, I'm sure this the melody will linger on. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible.
Yeah. Good.
Hello, can I ask a question, Ramu?
Yeah, please, sir.
Will the Citizens Amendment Act have any great impact on the, shall I say, future of our thinking in Assam, or will it further alienate us?
Northeast Citizen Amendment Act, NRC is creating a lot of, I mean, the NRC, Assam, NRC itself is a little complicated in Assam because, you know, there are a lot of Bengalis there. It's true. At the same time, you know, the government had given a certain time. I believe, you know, the central government and the Assam government are not in harmony about this. I loosely read, you know, this going on about NRC. NRC is done. You know, the people have assumed because of NRC, you know, what will follow is, you know, it is direct against one community. And I don't know. It has become highly politicized. So but Assam did require, there's a demographic problem there. You cannot deny that there was no problem. Even it was happening into West Bengal also, a lot of immigration. And at some stage, we got to control it. I mean, it's a step taken. I mean, tribals should not be worried because there are not many immigrants there going inside. They're more or less protected from the outside influences.
Thank you.
Another?
I think so. One more thing is when we are looking at look east, there is also, it is called also, and it's an extension to look Southeast Asia, which is the future actually. So once we look Southeast Asia, I think the Northeast will get into the good economic routing. You know, it's more closer there and then what they call the mainland, you know?
Yeah, that's a very good point because, you know, this is also something which keeps coming up when we talk about Northeast. This look east policy is highly beneficial to the entire Northeast. A lot of development has to take place there. So, all government projects are getting stalled. That is the point. I mean, it is in papers. Look east policy and the new government that said, you know, look east we are taking up in earnest. What has happened about it now?
Also, having spent so much time in the Northeast, I mean, it's very apparent that our country has neglected the Northeast.
Yes.
Very badly neglected. And one of the things also could be the connectivity issue, because even now, if you want to come from the Northeast, the easiest way to come out of the Northeast is catch a flight and come out.
That's it.
You know, and it is the simplest, it's the easiest, and of course, it's a subsidized fares which go into the Northeast. That is there, but unless we have a connectivity through Bangladesh, like now Tripura is connected to Dhaka. Likewise, unless there is a good connectivity, we'll have problems in terms of goods traffic, in terms of even passengers moving.
At least nowadays, a broad gauge train is going up to Tinsukia. Previously, we had to change at some place called Lumbing or something like that, and from medium gauge to broad gauge.
No, now we will have broad gauge both on the north bank of Brahmaputra and in any case in the south bank it is there, right up to Chabua, what is that? Dibrugarh.
Connectivity is a big issue because, you know, people it takes so long to travel to Northeast.
Yes.
From there it is changed.
But I found that the Northeast, the people are far, far, far more civilized in
Yes.
terms of following law and order, in terms of decorum, in terms of cleanliness. They are miles ahead of the rest of India. Miles.
Unfortunately, they're not being given a chance to sort of go forward because this militancy. What I feel is, it's the government's responsibility to contain it.
Yes.
The law and order machinery in place. Instead of just blindly putting the army there.
Yes.
And,
Exactly.
it is not a job for the army. And the army is also keeping quiet. I'm surprised. They should tell, we don't want to be here. It is not our job. You do it.
Exactly. You mentioned our fighters fired rockets over our own citizens. When I called on the chief minister when I was in the Northeast in Mizoram, the first thing he said, we were talking, and then he said, listen, why did you fire?
Yes. Even after so many years, they will ask you.
Yeah. He says, we will never forget. We will never forget.
Exactly. This guy also will never forget this.
I mean, it should never, ever be done. You cannot take your weapons and fire against your own.
Actually, the Golden Temple thing was also not very different. So you see, one of the drivers, the tank drivers, the tank which drove into Golden Temple, was telling me, so he could not even traverse the gun. I was surprised when I was reading it. Within the confines of a building, as it is tank fighting, tanks are not supposed to fight in built-up area. And sending it into a huge complex, they cannot even traverse the gun. What was the point? It is just to create terror, which is not done, especially a holy place. See? Yes. And Operation Blue Thunder, which this was Operation Blue, something they called it, the first one.
Blue Star. Blue Star, right?
A Blue Star. And next was Black Thunder. They did it with snipers only. This was an infantry job, and it is not. You cannot use tanks and artillery and air power against our own people here. Whatever it is. It's overkill.
Sir, I want to make a point.
Sure.
I have served both in Assam and as well as in Nagaland. Nagaland was much earlier. I was a youngster, so I won't be able to comment much on that. But I commanded my battalion in Assam. And, they have got a very, very, very rich culture. What a culture they have.
Yes.
There's no doubts about it. But unfortunately, due to this immigration problem, the migration of all this Bangladeshi Muslims, you see the total demographic pattern has totally changed out there.
Exactly.
And it's really a very, very, very sad to see how their culture has been so much spoiled. And there are hardly any, culture of Assam, original identity of Assamese culture is left there now. I don't know how it is going to get sorted out.
When initially itself, when all Assam students took up this issue, government should have thought about it seriously. At least at that time, they should have put brakes on it. You cannot have a demography of a place being changed and then the people should keep quiet. It is not, the liberals are there immediately to say, it is against Muslims. It's not against Muslims or something. Would you like to see?
Unfortunately, everything is politicized. All political
Everything
drama.
is politicized. People are looking for political leverage. That is the problem.
Exactly.
Yes, Danesh.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Before that, I want to make something that during the 60s, Zhendong Mao had kept a few Nagas in the Yunnan province, right?
Yeah, Yunnan province, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so he also funded the Maoist in the Northeast region and all. So the recent, not recent, 5 years ago, there was a Chandal attack in which the Dogra regiment was, 20 of the brave soldiers were killed in action. And the group was ULFA. And they claimed that they were funded by these Chinese guys, Xi Jinping and all. So do you think that in this present situation, there will be more tension in LAC or in more northeast region? Because
North LAC, this already Chinese have run into a wall. You see, creating
yes,
problems in Ladakh. I don't think they'll try anything on this side now because it is no more like 62. You know, we are not going to take it lying there. Understood. But in any case, the support for Northeast insurgents, China has shied off on that because for one reason, the Naga insurgents, when they're, for one thing about the Nagas are the ones who had close link with Chinese first. Nagas were disillusioned when they went to China. They are staunch Christians, Nagas. Church had a great impact on them. They were headhunters, the church only weaned them out of that. And when they went there, you know, religion has no place in Chinese communist culture. Whereas here, they keep seeing Indian Army officers and when, you know, attending church with them. They thought at least these people respect religion, so they've shunned Chinese. And right now, Yunnan province, this rascal, what's his name, Paresh Barua, who wants to create a you know, Assam kingdom of his own. He's the only one who is thriving there. Others are all. Yunnan has been the traditional base for all its insurgents going. Chinese have been giving them a kind of support, but it has waned out. They are not interested. And neither are these insurgents interested. Because they find, you know, Chinese help is limited. They cannot do much. The only place they have, they can effectively come in is Arunachal Pradesh. That is well guarded now. Only.
no, sir, because we have seen that even the Al Qaeda, ISIS have been funded by the Chinese. So even those Bangladeshi immigrants residing in Assam and all those areas in northeast, they might also be funded by the present situation in France.
See, they got a funding channel and things like that when before Sheikh Hasina came. Now Bangladesh is very, very clear about their you know, stand. They won't permit anything inside. They consider, I mean, as you know, 30 odd veterans go every year. You know, they protect Indian Indians. So no ISI or no these people can. It is Bangladesh was the channel, so it doesn't help. So that ISI, Chinese, and all these Northeast is not much affected. Northeast, the problem, as I said, is we've got to put a proper law and order machinery to sort out the place. So unless we do that, this our civil administration out there, they're not interested. They're not dedicated, I would say. This is the main problem. If you put our heart and soul to it, very much.
Sir, I have one question, sir.
Sure.
NSCIM, what makes them makes them so popular, or makes them the consultant for insurgency across the states in the Northeast? I mean, they are involved in places where they are not emotionally or sentimentally involved in. So why do they offer their consultancy services?
Out of the two Naga factions, NSC and IM and NSC and Kaplan, okay, this has got more followers. That we got to give it to them. The NSC and I, their cadres are also, they got more cadres, more and our governments are so important. They even got a camp in Dimapur. They raised the flags there, and they were permitting. I really don't understand the sense behind this. Why are they permitting NSCM to have a camp and talks are going on? And this what is called guy Moya, who recently had this, supposed to have signed a peace agreement with the Prime Minister, and nothing has been come out of it. What it really contained. And he still keeps claiming that Naga sovereignty is not negotiable. What do they mean by not negotiable? It's a dream. As I said, a dream comes true. They will never get their Nagaland as a country. And India will never give it. It is like, it is not even like Kashmir. In any case, what is a landlocked place with no resources, no thing? I mean, they want to create a country of their own. This chap wants to get money out of it. He's being treated as a VIP. What for? Let the bugger go to jail. That's what we should do. You're not doing that.
But how is he accepted in other states? Because I read, like for example,
Nobody accepts them. You see, these different groups, because these people had some earlier training and some experience in guerrilla warfare. Anybody, they got channels to get weapons. And there were a hell of a lot of NGOs who are giving them money. You know, that many of these Europeans, I mean, they're rather jealous. You know, they didn't want, you know, they used to funnel money to these people. IM and Kaplan was getting more from China, NSC and IM. So that is one reason they grew. More money means more growth. So ultimately, it's they became, they're available. Their services are available, so naturally people will come to them.
They also use drug money, right? I mean, from all the trade that happens from Myanmar and Thailand and all that. So are they involved in the drug trade as well?
Yeah, that is one of the resources. I mean, main resources. You know, sort of drug trafficking, arms trafficking, all kinds of illegal activities. These guys are involved. And it is a criminal outfit. You know, why are we treating them as, you know, insurgent or anything? You know, they should be annihilated and finished and thrown out. There should be no compromise about it. And whenever the army does that, finish them off, and you know, before we nail the coffin, the government will come with a peace negotiation, something, ceasefire. So what is the point? Then again, they will get time. You know, they buy time by saying the ceasefire and the negotiations. That is the point. We must have a strong policy.
Right.
Okay. So, if you have no more questions, I'll, instead of the national anthem, I'll play again Northeast music of national value. You can see there. Further see there. It's coming through.
And it says, ladies and gentlemen, I'm
Yes, sir.
so proud
Loud and clear.
to be an Indian. And that's what we resonate from our hearts. And that's what we'll sing for you now. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen, Vande Mataram. I'm so proud to be an Indian. मुझे गर्व है हिंदुस्तान पर, मुझे गर्व है तिरंगे पर, मुझे गर्व है हिंदुस्तान पर, मुझे गर्व है तिरंगे पर, जग में है जो टूटे रिश्ते, आओ हम जुड़े इससे, मुझे गर्व है हिंदुस्तान पर। वंदे मातरम, वंदे मातरम। I'm so proud to be an Indian. To hold my flag up high. I'm so proud to be an Indian. I'm so proud to hold my flag up high. In a world with so much suffering, let us heal the wounded.
so proud to be an Indian. बदलेगा ये जहां, मिल जाएगी हमें जन्नत यहाँ.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. So, all today, 15 people still remaining. Any more
An
questions?
evening to
Anything else?
remember.
So you like
I
this,
said
sir?
evening to remember.
Talking about corruption, I just suddenly, I had not noted down, I was just talking off the mark. There's something which I forgot, a very important once. In Manipur, they were selling this disposable syringe which are available for 2 or 3 rupees outside. The government was purchasing 150 rupees per syringe. Can you imagine the level of corruption? What terrible kind of. I mean, this guy deserved to be shot. I mean, I cannot hear it.
Sir, unmute yourself.
Krishnami sir, I cannot hear you. You got on mute.
I said instead of strapping the Nagas, you should have strapped these jokers who are very well making black market.
Exactly. You cannot pick them out and strap them. And actually, the entire Ijal ran away. The entire civil population ran away because they had never seen aircraft coming in. The entire lot took off. They were fired at. The copters were fired at by some, but these rifles. In fact, the story says Manaksha had gone to Ijal to negotiate. When he took off, somebody fired a shot. And he came, that I don't know whether it's true. We came to Eastern Command, he said, send in the brigades. And he may have
Very
thought,
much, Nagram. It is an evening of great pleasure and great music and lovely presentation. Thank you very much.
oh, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Who gave you the haircut?
Sir, I did it by myself.
Oh, I see.
It was boring.
You look like an American GI.
No, it's called Mestin haircut. Put the Mestin on top.
He wants to be a US Marine. Like this.
Yes.
I'm due for a haircut.
Good evening with the national spirit
Yeah, good evening.
of Northeast frontier. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Satyanarayan. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending. Hope you liked it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Good night,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, sir.
Good
Have a
night.
happy
Good night.
Sunday.
Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Good night.
See you tomorrow.
See you all tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Tomorrow morning. Yes, sir.
You're a photographer, so you can.
I'll be there. Absolutely.
Yeah. Wildlife photography.
Yes.
Right, sir. Good night, sir.
Yeah, Krishnas. Yeah. Mohan Bardhan, sir, you're still there? But I cannot see you.
Good night, Menon here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, Commander Menon is here.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just went to get some water.
Oh, I see. Okay.
When you were just after the song, I went to get some water. All these are there. I have not seen the blog, but I like to read.
I see. And
Because I personally feel it is an extremely, it's a textbook case of a bad lack of good communication, lack of interaction with the people, extremely corrupt administration and
yeah,
politicians.
that is the most significant point, the corrupt administration.
So
not interested, you see.
It is not that we don't have good officers. We should take state by state, clean it up, including Bihar.
You see, it's something like the condition is something like Tsarist Russia, if you ask me. When the poor people are given no attention, they're living in at least
And
5 decades.
we cannot impose our beliefs on certain people who have believed in traditional honor of the tribe.
Yeah.
They have to change on their own. So we have to give them space and education, and then like we evolved from our traditional background to be able to even accept criticism of our practices.
See, it is the government's job to create a peaceful environment in the first place. That's not happening.
I'm told only one person who understood the problem of so-called Northeast is Wing Commander Rauni. Yes.
Oh, Rauni, I know. Rauni was there when I was there also. He was, he was the chief secretary, I think. He had written
a commissioner there, then chief secretary.
Yeah.
He's one person who has understood, everybody said, who knew exactly what is happening there.
He used to write a lot and he tried a lot.
He tried a lot, and the British mischief was in full form there with Dr. Fizo being pissed off. Mr. Nehru's love affair with Edwina didn't do anything good to prevent that. And all that we did is we just succumbed to the British pressure and their treachery even in UN with respect to our Kashmir issue. The assurance given was Britain will support India in UN. That is what the Mountbatten said. But all along, from the very beginning, they wanted to keep Kashmir independent or with Pakistan. Because they found that portion is better.
Kashmir, with the Northeast, Mountbatten, that's something which I forgot to say again. It's such an expensive subject.
He is not worthy of being respected. It's a beautiful movie about Mountbatten. And I saw that, and they have brought out a British film. They have brought out all his scheming methods behind. Especially Fizo, Dr. Fizo, and he is telling Nehru to give them autonomy and flag and all that, and Fizo is allowed to go to London. You're right. You remember, no?
You see, the British had a guy called Sir Reginald Coupland. Even as the Indian people were getting ready for independence, there was a Coupland plan to create a crown colony in Northeast, something like Hong Kong. so they can have a springboard. Imagine their stupidity. Even the British establishment themselves, people in it threw it out of the window. He said he wanted to create a crown colony within Northeast, encourage these people. There's a lot of international.
Yes, you are right. You are right. And the role of the unfortunate role of the Scottish Church missionaries there was quite mischievous.
Yeah, Indira Gandhi threw them out. That.
And I don't blame the missionaries so much as Watworth or Ramakrishna Mission and others, all so-called Hindutva guys doing. Because
exactly, I mean, all this religious interference in this thing. One thing, the funny thing about this.
I don't blame anybody who goes to tribal area and does survey.
Yeah.
You have not done it, you are left a space, somebody has to do it.
That's right, yeah. I quite agree with you. No, church has done a lot of good work there also. You cannot say we're totally, at least they've been the Nagas out of Heralding.
In fact, their advancement is mainly because of the Western education they got.
Yeah, Western education, they gave, most of these Northerners speak English because of that. A lot of things they did. It's not, everything is not black and white. I mean, a lot of gray areas. Varman sir, is still there? I can see your name. Mohan is name. Or is it, it's empty Menon, is it? Mohan.
I will sign off with your permission.